This is Lori Baker. I am the Statewide Housing Coordinator for Long-Term Care Reform, and I am actually now in the Department of Human Services in the Secretary's office, and will soon physically move my office to the Department of Human Services building in Springfield. But my duties are the same, and I am happy to talk to Continuum of Care members around the state about the Statewide Referral Network and the resources that are available to persons that you are serving that the state is managing through our online housing locator. So what is the Statewide Referral Network? Maybe people have heard of this. I hope that you have heard of this. It began in 2007, and what it is set-aside units within low-income housing tax credit projects funded by the Illinois Housing Development Authority that are set aside to be supportive housing for set to populations. So that population would be a person or household, head of household that has a disability or is homeless or at risk of homelessness. So the available eligibility requirements for the Statewide Referral Network, or SRN as we call it for short, is very simple. It's not a consent decree class member, which many people think that this program is only for. It is not for only persons moving out of institutional settings. It is not for the most vulnerable person as determined by Chris. This is the Statewide Referral Network system, so it's outside of any of your local systems. It's a statewide opportunity for supportive housing options for persons that are experiencing homelessness, at risk of homelessness, or have a disability. And this is supportive housing. The thing to remember is that supportive housing is for people with very low incomes and disabilities or multiple barriers to community living. This is affordable housing plus the supportive services that you provide that will assist the individual or household in living in the community and thriving where they are located. Supportive housing is not intended for every person that needs affordable housing. Simply needing affordable housing is an important threshold. That's an important need, but these small amounts of Statewide Referral Network set-aside units within larger affordable housing projects are dedicated towards a population that needs that continued support. So the unit makes it affordable and the services make it supportive housing. So how do you access this statewide referral network resource, these units that become available every month across the state from top to bottom? There are about 1,312 units at the moment, and we bring new projects online every month. I am seeing, since we have started our new online waiting list, anywhere between 30 and 50 turnover units a month, which are individual single units around the state. And then we have new startup projects that are just opening their doors and doing lease up, and so we then have a larger number of Statewide Referral Network units to fill in each one of those communities. Anyone who is working with the social service agency is able to place onto our online waiting list a person who meets the criteria, so a person or household, head of household with disabilities, a person or household at risk of homelessness, or a person or household who is currently experiencing homelessness. We call our online waiting list, it's the pre-screening, assessment, intake, and referral module, and it's located within the ilhousingsearch.org housing locator website. And I'm going to show you really quickly just a bit about our online housing locator, so that you know the tools that are available within it, and also then show you how to walk through how to enter someone onto this online waiting list. Just so you know, we will be sending out a follow-up email after this webinar that will include the slides that were shown, as well as the link to the recorded webinar and some additional documents that you'll need in order to obtain a user login in order to access the online waiting list. So this is the ILHousingSearch.org general public web page. You can see here that people can search for homes in their community. Landlords can actually list their housing on this site. They can do that, access that through the 1-800 number or through the actual account that they can receive by logging in. There's also some resource links and moving tools. There's some tenant resources that give you some basic information as a tenant about thinking about what moving costs are and what you can afford to pay in rent. And so this is what the general public sees when they come to the website. I'm going to now click over to a demo version of our website, so that you can see what the system looks like without incurring any anyone's information that is live, that is real people, right? So this has dummy information that is not real people data out there. So as you can see, whenever you go into the ILHousingSearch.org, you will notice that there is this login feature here at the top, or the Caseworker Login here. When you click that button, what you get is this, you get the, I'm sorry, I'm going to log out so you can see it. You get this login page that asks for a username and password. And a username and password is given to you once you sign a confidentiality agreement and submit that to our online management system that actually are our software vendors that created the software. And again, all that information and the form that you need to complete and submit to them, it will be included in the follow-up email. As you send that, they'll reach back out to you as soon as they receive that and set up with you a username and password, and they'll walk you through the process of logging in and using some of the resources. But I'm also going to walk you through that today. There's also always this step-by-step guide that's available online as you work through the processes, and you can always email or call myself or the 800 number that is listed below on any of the pages of the internal caseworker portal. As you can see, once I've signed in, I have these options over here on the left-hand side of my page. And the first two options I'm going to talk about are available for use for any caseworker who is working with people, and you don't have to put someone on the waiting list in order to use these options. The first one is a special search option. So I'm going to show you when we begin a special search what that looks like. I can go in and choose a community area where I'm interested in living. So let's say I'm interested in living in Springfield, Illinois. I'm going to choose Springfield. And I'm going to look at the information that I'm able to select in terms of what kind of housing I'm looking for. So am I working with a person that already has a housing choice voucher and wants to continue to use it, or a veteran? Do I need specific bedroom size? I need a 2-bedroom because I'm working with a family that has 2 children that are the same gender and want to live together. I need perhaps a lower rent than what is currently I'm finding available. And then maybe I need something that's close to public transit, or I need a landlord that can actually speak Spanish, or I need a building that's smoking, or I want a specific zip code. All of that's available to choose within this system. We can also choose special population filters, and these filters don't send any kind of information to the landlord, but the landlord or property management company, when they have submitted information about their unit, have said that they're interested in working with any of the types of populations that are listed here on the special populations filter. And that's just so, you know, somebody who's a veteran and owns properties might want to reach out and serve and allow veterans to live with them, and they might be willing to work with criminal background or better understand the issues that a veteran is going through and be a more amenable landlord to that population. But you don't have to choose any of these, and people don't have to select these when they're entering information about their units. There is also an advanced portion of the search that allows you to add some information about other things that you might need, like if you're looking for some place that would accept a rental subsidy, or you're looking for a place that had income-based or sliding scale rent because you wanted things to be more accessible to somebody. You needed, someone had a pet that they were very attached to, and they needed to find some place that had a pet policy. You could click that. If you're working on person's criminal background or credit check was an issue, you could click on those to get places that say that they don't perform either one of those. Remember, the more things that you choose, the more options you choose, the more things you're going to screen out, but you might be getting exactly what it is that the person needs. You also can screen out things that properties that are on a waiting list, and so they're available right now, which would be important if you're working with somebody who is needing a unit right this moment and doesn't have time to wait on a waiting list. The accessibility features also, if you are working with a person that requires accessible features within their unit, you can click on accessible and choose the type of accessibility features that are needed, and that way you'll be connected to properties that say that they have these accessibility features within the unit that they have available. So there's lots of opportunity to be able to define your search. And so I'm going to finish out my special search here, and I'm going to click to search in Springfield, Illinois, and you can see that I didn't come up with any options that were meeting my request, because I said I needed something that had pets and wasn't allowed pets and wasn't on a waiting list and was a 2-bedroom. So I can do one of 3 things. I can start a new search, or I can do what is called a save search. If I save the search and click on this button, it's going to allow me to name my search, and it's going to say in the special notes what I'm looking for: 2-bedroom, rent range $0 to $400 a month, pets okay, exclude properties on waiting list. And I'm going to click to continue, and then I get this message, and it says that when I receive the email from islhousingsearch.org, I'm going to click on the email to respond to it to make it activated. And now any time that someone enters a new property that meets my search criteria, I'm going to receive an email directly from the site saying there is now a unit available that meets the criteria of one of your safe searches. This is a really good option, especially if you work in community areas or specific locations where people are always interested in living. You could have a safe searched out here so that anytime a new property comes into onto the waiting list, onto the hub here, onto our housing locator, then you would be alerted of that waiting list availability. So that's a really fabulous feature to have. So those are 2 features within the Caseworker portal that are available only within the Caseworker portal for you as a person who has a username and password login. This is a great option and not only do you see all the housing that is listed as Statewide Referral Network, special needs housing, and public listings, you see them all in one big search there. So you don't have to do two separate searches, one in the public listings and one in the caseworker portal to see all the units that are out there. I think I'll pause for a second. Bob, are there any questions that are around the initial information that we have discussed?
Yeah, Lori, can you hear me? Lori?
Yes.
Yeah, there is a question about referring people. Can we refer a family in which the head of household is not disabled, but there's a member of the household who is?
The requirements say that it is the head of household is a person with a disability. You could call me and talk to me about the situation. If it's a child in the household with a disability, it is not. But oftentimes, people that have other household members that have a disability are at risk of homelessness. So you could refer them as a person who is at risk of family who's at risk of homelessness.
Thanks.
Anything else?
And again, we'll give out your contact information at the end of the.
Yep, it's on my last slide, and I'll show it when we get done showing you all this information on the actual website. So
right. And here's another question.
Sure.
What if the area that your client, or what if I'm not totally clear on the question. What if the area that your client needs housing is not available? So what if there is no housing available in the area where your client is?
So I would, when you're doing a search, I would do a save search for that community area, and that way anytime something becomes available in that area, you'll get an email about it. And when I show you the online waiting list for the Statewide Referral Network resources, you will see how you are able to select and how we match available properties to people that have chosen that community area, and you can see what we're working on. The more often that people save a search for an area that doesn't have any housing resources here, we're able to use our online housing locator management team called Social Serve. They have a call-in center, and they do outreach in specific areas that we're showing that we're having a need for housing, but don't have enough available units there, and so they do outreach to landlords and property managers in those areas. But the only way we can know about that is if you use the special search and save searches feature, so that we're able to see, hey, there's a need for several units in this community. We need to do some outreach there to try to get more resources onto our housing locator.
Thanks. Another question: do the individuals have to be receiving SSDI or SSI?
No.
No.
No, you do need to, it is best to have income, but because many property managers are not obviously going to lease to someone who can't pay the rent. But let me show you the features of the online waiting list, and you can update that at any time, because obviously when you're working with people that are experiencing homelessness or are at risk of homelessness, that you are working with them in order to obtain resources and so that they can live and find housing, and so you're able to update person's information within the online waiting list when they do obtain income or other resources. But it's not a requirement for them to have any type of Social Security or Social Security disability. You can have any kind of income. And you can have no income and still be placed on the waiting list, and then you can continue to update that waiting list.
Okay. Another question, can you list more than one community?
Yes, and I'll get to that in a second when we go through the waiting list features.
Okay, and then also this question just came in, could you explain what VASH is?
Yes, VASH is Veterans Administration Supportive Housing, and it's a federal program that is like a housing choice voucher for veterans, and the supportive housing portion is provided by the VA, the Veterans Administration, through their VA hospital staff. So the support services are provided by that staff, and the rental subsidy is provided by the HUD in partnership with the VA with local public housing authorities. It's kind of a smallish resource, but it's been a newer one in the past few years, and we have continued to have increased appropriations of VASH vouchers, although this year housing budget may not, end up the same as it has in the past few years, where they've actually been able to increase the number of VASH vouchers there are.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to take some more questions, Roy? They're coming in. We have 3 more.
Let me go ahead and start walking through how to use the waiting list, and maybe some of the questions will be answered there, and if not, we'll continue to answer questions after I get through how to use the final feature on the caseworker portal of ilhousingsearch.org.
Great.
Thank you. So you're going to click on the waiting list here, and you can see that it says wait list, view my clients. When I log into this, I'm accepting responsibility for maintaining confidentiality and security of the information that I am viewing, because I am viewing information only about my clients, but I need to make sure that other people are unable to get onto my computer and view personal information about the clients or potential tenants that I'm working with. When you open it up, and you will see that, again, this is my demo site, so it doesn't have any real personal identifying information. You can see what we call the dashboard, and this is information about the 2 waiting lists that are managed through this pre-screening assessment intake and referral module. First, it's much simpler to say waiting list, but the pair module or waiting list, we manage our HUD 811 waiting list in this on this waiting list site also, but don't let that confuse you. You're probably not going to work with anybody that's eligible for HUD 811 because there's some specific eligibility requirements there. But SRN, the Statewide Referral Network, has those 3 simple eligibility criteria. I am a head of household with a disability or experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. I need supportive housing, ongoing support, and I have very low income, 30% of area median income or below. So as you can see, I have 2 clients that are pending on the waiting list. They're waiting for the wait list administrator to take some action on them. I can see their names, and I can see what their application status is. When I come in for the first time, this is all going to be 0. I'm not going to have any clients in here, right? But the first thing I do when I'm getting ready to enter someone is pre-screen an applicant. So the system is set up to pre-screen for both programs, both the HUD Section 811 and the Statewide Referral Network, and I'm going to leave it that way as we enter, so you can see the kind of messages you'll get if you leave it that way. And I'm going to enter information about my potential tenant. So I'm going to enter the date of birth. I'm going to enter the household size. I am going to enter the type of amount of income, and I'm going to have the choice here of however I have the information. If I know, how much a person makes per hours in a 40-hour week, I can enter that here, and the system is going to extrapolate it out. If I know how much they make a week, or daily, or yearly, or monthly, I'm going to be able to choose that. And the system will itself, in this pre-screening, figure out if the person is eligible for the program. I am going to enter the person's Medicaid number here. It is not required that a person have Medicaid, so it is not a required field there. And anytime I see these little question marks, I'm able to click on them and get information about the question itself that I am looking at. In the same way, I'm able to click on more information to get the definition of something that is asked in a question. So this is the definition of the Statewide Referral Network disability. So I'm going to say my person does not have a disability as defined by either HUD or the Statewide Referral Network. They aren't eligible for long-term services and supports. So that's a Medicaid-based thing, and it's more geared towards the people that might be eligible for Section 811. Then there are two questions that should be familiar to people that work with any kind of HUD programming. Is the person a lifetime registered sex offender? Or have they ever been convicted of producing methamphetamine on federally assisted property? That is not a person that has ever been convicted of methamphetamine production. They have to have been convicted of methamphetamine production on a federally assisted property in order to have a lifetime ban. So those are the two kind of lifetime bans that HUD has. Then the final question here that I am going to agree or disagree to is, in order to be eligible for a statewide referral network unit, my social service agency has to say that we are willing to continue to support the potential tenant not only through this online application process, through the process of applying at the property, transitioning and moving into the unit, and while they live within the unit. So by agreeing to this, I am committing or saying that my organization is going to continue to support this individual or family in supportive housing, because that's where the support comes from. The affordable housing comes from this online waiting list. So I'm going to click agree to that. Then you can see that I have listed every county in the state of Illinois. Please don't check all, although I've had a few people do it, because I don't believe that there is truly anyone in this state that is willing to live in any county in the state and able to be supported by your organization in any county in the state. We have a very big state, and I know that people experiencing homelessness, you think will live anywhere, but that's just really not feasible if you think about it logically. So you can choose more than one county if somebody truly is interested in more than one county. If you're kind of up around the Cook and the Collier County areas, there's obviously lots of cities and communities that spread across multiple counties, so you certainly could be interested in living in more than one county. But you want to make sure, I think, that you're really choosing where someone really has the ability to live and where you have the ability to support them. So again, I'm going to choose Sangamon County, because that's I used Springfield earlier, so I'm going to click on Sangamon County. If I can find it, there it is. And then the final question is, where is the person currently living? Are they living, the first 5 or 6 are related to money, are related to the Section 811 eligibility. You're probably not going to have anybody that falls into this these categories unless your organization is working with one of the class action lawsuits or the Money Follows the Person program that the state is currently implementing. The last 3 are going to be the ones that are more than likely pertinent to persons experiencing homelessness or at risk. So you can choose currently homeless, as in emergency shelter, transitional housing, you know the drill, or at risk of homelessness, and then there's some more information. We use the HUD at risk of homelessness guidelines as our kind of information about what at risk means. Or there's none of the above, and that would be for the person with a disability who is not moving out of an institutional setting like these 6 listed above at the top, but it is a person with a disability that isn't homeless or at risk of homelessness. So any of these 3 at the bottom make you eligible for statewide referral network. So we're going to say that that person is currently at risk, and then we're going to click here to continue. So that's some real basic questions to do a pre-screening to see what this person is eligible for. And I made a mistake. So this system is going to tell you if there is some mistake within your application so that you can fix that before you submit it again. And you can see that I mistyped and I made my person that I'm working with very old. And so now I'm going to update that and click again. And here is the determination of what my potential tenant is screened to be eligible for. You can see that that says my applicant is possibly eligible for the Statewide Referral Network, but is not eligible for the A11 project-based rental assistance. And it gives me the reasons why. It says that I am eligible within Sangamon County, and that means that my income that I entered into the pre-screening meets falls underneath 30% of area median income within Sangamon County. So I can say I want to continue the application process, or that I made a mistake and changed my answer. So if I think that my person should have been eligible for HUD Section 11, or this comes up and says that I'm not eligible for the Statewide Referral Network, and you think that the person should be, you could go back and view your answers and make sure that you entered all the correct information. Continue with the application we're going to do in just a second, but I want to talk for a minute about consent and informed consent. So there's no place within the system where we ask you to upload consent from the consumer in order to have their information entered into it. It's implied when you click on this continue with the application process. You can see written right here, it says, by submitting this form, it is understood that personal information will be available for review by other users of this service, and that the client, applicant, legal guardian, or other legally accountable person has authorized the sharing of the information as required. So as you are working with anyone that you are working with, you get regular signed informed consent that is on your basic agency letterhead that is talking about giving general information to specific things. You do it for HMIS, you do it for everything. So this is just another informed consent that you'll need to have within your file just for your records, to know that you have permission from the consumer that you're working with to place their information on the waiting list. The only person that can see any of this information besides you as you enter it is the waitlist administrator, who at this point is me. So you and me are the only two people that can see the information that you put onto the system. We obviously have firewalls and safeguards and all kinds of ways to protect the information. But we all know that we have read the paper in the last, few months, and there's been lots of places that have gotten hacked. I can't imagine why anybody would ever want this information, but nowhere is 100% secure. Just be aware of that as you think about entering information onto any website anywhere in the world about yourself or about other people. So we are going to continue with our application process. And here you can see that we are getting ready to begin to enter data. There are 3 different pages that constitute the application for the online waiting list. And application is kind of a misleading term to use, since it's just simply gathering information to place you on the waiting list so that we can confirm your eligibility and match you to the correct unit. But that's what's used, so that's what we get. You can see that it pulled over information from the pre-screening that I entered, and you'll see that anytime that I have chosen any information I entered on the pre-screening is always going to be pulled over into the application, although I could change it from the pre-screening and it would allow me to do that. We're entering basic demographic data. Most things that are required by HUD or anyone else, you can always refuse or say unknown, as you know. We have a question about limited English proficiency, and if you have questions about what that is, you can click on it. Most of these questions are to ensure that we are able to contact the person if there is a unit available that they might be interested in, and make sure that we contact them in the proper way so that they understand and are able to make a decision about whether or not they want to be referred to a unit. Information about military service, pardon me, and then your social security number. It pulls back over your Medicaid number that you entered. Then it's going to ask if you're blind or visually impaired, or if your disability impacts your ability to communicate. Again, that's so that we ensure that we are able to send information about a potential match property for them in order to make sure that they understand the information as presented. You can then enter the person's email address, not that your agency email address, but the person's email address if they have one. It's not required field. Then their mailing address, and their city where they live, obviously, zip code. And then you're able to also list a physical address if they have a different place where they actually reside, and maybe they have a rural route or a box number here, or post office box. You're not required to do anything, and this could be your organization's place if you have a emergency shelter, or the person is actively experiencing homelessness on the street. You could have this be your agency's information. Then you enter the phone number for the referral. And then you can put a phone note by this and say this is the cell phone of the participant. You can add as many phone numbers as you want. If you click add a phone number, it'll give you another box and it'll keep doing it. You can put different phone notes on it. You can put that this is like mother's phone, so that they could contact them in another place. You can write any comment on any one of these pages, like cell phone minutes are few, so please contact the referral source. And that means that when I send a notice, I will give them the phone number that you asked me to give them, so that they can make sure property can get a hold of the person. Then you click to continue. It's going to take us, oops, my phone number wasn't valid. It's not valid. It must not be a real phone number. I didn't think 555 was either, but I thought I was making it all up. We'll just get rid of the whole thing. And now I'm on to the second page, which is about the housing that I need and want within the communities that I'm interested in. So it's going to pull over again my current living situation from the pre-screening. It's going to ask a series of questions about what type of features might be needed within the unit. So if the person needs physically accessible, or they need hearing impairment accessibility features, or vision impairment accessibility features, if they need no step or ramped, if they're going to have a live-in aid, or they need an extra bedroom for medical equipment. Then you can choose the size of the unit that someone is interested in. When it's a one-person household, like this is, I would advise that you choose both a studio and a one-bedroom, which you're allowed to do, in order to maximize their options, unless somebody is just dead set against, living in a studio. You would choose larger bedroom size for anyone who is a family that needs a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, or a 4-bedroom. There are more often less 4 bedrooms that are available, so unless a family is really, really large, it's probably gonna not give you many options for 4 bedrooms, but there are those occasional 4 bedrooms that we have available. You can see that it brought over our interested counties. It brought over my Sangamon County, and now it gives me all the cities within Sangamon County that I might be interested in living in. So I'm going to choose the cities that I would potentially live in if I was offered an affordable housing opportunity in one of these. and then I will click to submit. But I want to show people, just in case you're in the Chicago area, that if I click Cook County and I click Chicago, it gives me the 77 community areas within Chicago that I can be interested in. So we break it down that far that the official Chicago community areas map is here also, that you can click on and see. So people could very well want to live in several, or be willing to live in several community areas within Chicago. But this is how far it's broken down. Everywhere else in the state, it is county and then cities within the county that you can choose from. Then you click to continue. And then the final page of the application to get onto the waiting list is information about income and household size. So it's going to pull over my amount of money that I set in my pre-screening, and I'm going to put this in. I'm just going to say that it's SSI just to make it easy. Actually, let me put it in earned income, that way you'll won't confuse you, but we don't require somebody to have SSI or SSDI. You can see all the different types of income that's available here. There's even other sources that you can type in and add in what those incomes are. Again, you can choose for monthly, yearly, hourly, weekly, daily. If a person has no income, you don't have to put anything in here. If they have applied for SSI or SSDI, you can indicate that by checking the box that corresponds with that. But you don't have to, you're not required to put any income in here. A person is not required to have income to be on the waiting list. But I'll talk a little bit later about how I make matches, and that I am not going to send a match onto a property if they have no income, because they're going to get denied by the property. But they do not come off the waiting list, and you are able to update this information at any time on any of your referrals that you have placed on the waiting list. You can change any of this information anytime that you are working with someone. You can see that it brought over my other information that I had on my pre-screening about the referring agency committing to support the person and that the person is not disabled. And I'm going to click here to continue and have the final result of my waiting list. So it says that I have been successfully added to the applicant registry waiting list. It says that I could use that the link above to create an applicant, but I know that my person wasn't eligible. It said that at initial pre-screening, so I'm not going to do that. I can see all of the events that have happened to the person's file that I've entered their application. You can see that it's added to the list. A description was added, we added attributes, we modified, and then now here's the final information. You can see that this is where the only place where you notice you didn't put in anywhere that the person was related to you, but the system knows that because you're the person that's signed in, and this is the only place that someone can see this. A landlord just never comes onto this waiting list. They never see anything. Only the waiting list manager sees it. You can see all the basic information about the list here. So if I go back to my view my clients, I can see that I now have a new client on here. I can see what date they were entered, and then I can see that they're all pending because the waiting list manager needs to go in and confirm and place them onto waiting approved list. Let me step through the last slide that I have, and then we can start with questions about the online waiting list. So the Statewide Housing Coordinator is now manages the waiting list and matches eligible persons to available properties. So let me tell you how this happens. When I'm doing a match, I have information from our online housing locator site about statewide referral network units that are available. I then match the unit, its size, its location, its accessibility features, and any other requirements about the units, and I run a filter on the waiting list for people that match the criteria and want to live in that community. And so if there are, let's say there's 5 people, then I could select those 5 people and create an offer email that I send to the referral source and the tenant. So if there's an email on file for the tenant, I will address the email to them and CC the referral source. If there is not an email on file for the consumer, the potential tenant, I will send the email to the referral source and ask them to speak with their referral about the opportunity that has been potentially offered to them. It will include, the email includes information about the unit, including a link to the online listing that has all the information about the amenities and where the actual unit is located, because I may want to live in Uptown, but I may not want to live on every street in Uptown. So that's an important decision that people need to have the opportunity to decide whether or not they would like to be referred onto the property. I usually give folks anywhere from 3 to 5 days to respond to the email, asking them if they are interested in being referred on to the property. When I hear back from them, I either, if they have said, yes, I'm interested in living in that property, I create a referral email that goes to property management at the property. I CC the consumer or the potential tenant if they have an email, and I BCC the referral source so that the property manager cannot see who the referral source is, unless the consumer chooses to disclose that. And then I give them the potential tenant's phone number and ask them to contact them to have them come in and complete the property application for the specific statewide referral network unit that is available. If the potential tenant isn't interested in the unit, the household stays on the waiting list and does not lose their place in line. They don't, these are dated and time stamped as you enter them into the system, and when I pull them up, they always come in priority number, you know, so that the oldest referral is at the top, and it goes down on the list. So no one, if they say, no, I don't want to live on that street, or that's not a good area for me, or that's not the property that I want to live at, that does not in any way at this point knock you off of the waiting list, because we understand that this new way that we are taking online referrals and creating the waiting list is better, I think, because it gives people more options, because we're not just having to get on a waiting list for individual properties, but it also means that I may not be interested in a property that becomes available in the community area that I'm interested in, if that makes any sense. So when we send on the referral to the property, and then follow up with the property. If they are having a hard time getting a hold of the person, I will give them the referral source's contact number with just like your first name and phone number, and or send an email, you know, to say, hey, the property's trying to get a hold of this person. Can you make sure that they get a hold of them? They go to the property, complete the application, and go through the screening process just like any other person because of fair housing laws, and hopefully will then be chosen for the unit. Now, most of these units are at what is called 30% AMI rent, which is area median income rent, and don't get confused with the rent being 30% of a person's income. So the 30% area median income rent is a flat rent that you have to be at 30% or below of area median income to be eligible for, but it doesn't change based on how high or how low your income is within that 30% range. So it's just a flat 30% area median income rent. Usually, like for a one-bedroom, depending upon where you are in the state, you know, it can be anywhere from about $200 a month to $380 if you're in kind of the Chicagoland area. I've seen some that are lower than $200 a month. It just depends upon the community that you're in, because as you remember, area median income changes depending upon what county you are wanting to live in. So that 30% rent is the affordability portion of the property. It still can be subsidized, and there are some properties that have additional rental subsidies, but by far the majority of the statewide referral network units of affordability are based on that 30% area median income rent. I am going to put up my contact. Let me talk real quickly about what the promise of continued service provision means, and then we'll go to questions. So the promise that many times people are reluctant to or feel like they're unable to make, that promise, that agreement to continue to support that person or household within the unit. And I understand that completely, and have to make that decision within your organization about whether or not you can refer people onto the waiting list. But these units are meant to be supportive housing. They're not meant to be just affordable housing for persons with very low income. So the SRN unit is the affordable housing portion, and we count on service providers to provide the support service portion, and that makes it become supportive housing within the property. Always services are voluntary, just like any services you provide to your own supportive housing projects, but just like that, you continue to outreach and engage tenants who have chosen to separate from service, and you assist households with the consequences that can result from not accepting service. That is often a very good time to re-engage a household when there is some type of crisis situation going on. It's not the time that you should dust off your hands and say, well, you know, we're done with you. We understand that all financial situations are incredibly precarious right now. I mean, there's no budget for the state. We appreciate greatly your assistance in helping households who need these long-term supports and affordable housing. We appreciate the efforts that you make to help them access the statewide referral network units, but we also understand if you decide in your organization that you can't make referrals to these units. But think about ways that you could potentially add another household to your existing supportive housing service contract. I know that at this point some of those have been reduced, but hopefully once we have a budget that will be ironed out, and they'll get reinstated to the original amount, although I don't know that you know, I don't have a magic crystal ball, so don't take that as a I think definitely that's going to happen, but hopefully it will happen. The Bureau of Basic Supports and IDHS is always happy for you to add more clients. And again, remember, you don't have to provide every service that the household needs. You basically are going to help them access all of the services that they're eligible for, and the supports and that they need within the community from your community partners that are out there. You're going to do that kind of wraparound coordinating piece of case management in general. All right, so there's my contact information. I will leave it up, although I'm going to go back and sign in to the system just in case somebody asks a question, so I can show them to you. And Bob, do we have other questions?
We do. And some of them you've already answered, so you can probably go through these quickly. But just to clarify, make sure people get the answers they need. Does a member have to have SSI or SSDI to prove disability, or does a letter from a doctor qualify?
So within the Statewide Referral Network, we allow you to say that a letter from a doctor would qualify, and this is information that you're going to keep within your files. It's not something that we ask you to submit or upload into the waiting list. This is for your own confirmation that a person has a disability.
Thanks. And then again, to clarify, Williams or Colbert class members can use this resource.
They can. So since they are people with a disability, they would be eligible for a statewide referral network unit. And many of the folks that are working with Williams, Colbert, Liggis class members or Money Follows a Person participants that are eligible for Section 811 also complete then the statewide referral network waiting list portions, which actually self-fill out of the Section 811 application and are on both waiting lists as they're waiting for resources.
Okay. And then for address entry, if a client is homeless, will entering homeless be sufficient?
For, what was that?
For address entry.
Address.
Yeah.
I would put your organization's address in that in the address area, and you can make a comment in the bottom comment box of that page to say that this the person is actively homeless, and you know, anything that needs mailed to them would need to come to your attention at your address.
Okay. There's a question about people who get paid every 2 weeks, and will the person pay out their rent from each check, I guess, as opposed to paying just once a month?
So you could make, when people are going through the application process with the property manager, there could be negotiation there about how a rent is paid, but most landlords like to receive their rent in whole, and so if there needs to be, you know, portions that are saved from each rent, perhaps as a case manager you could assist somebody in you know, figuring out a way to do that in order to pay the rent. But some landlords might be willing to, you know, work on a bi-monthly basis like that. You'll just, that would not be like a determinate something that I could make happen. It would be something that you could assist the consumer, the potential tenant, in talking through the property management with, if they're interested in doing that.
Okay. And again, if you do have a question, you can type them into your GoToWebinar control panel. I think the two other questions that are on here you did address subsequent to people typing them in. Can you talk a little bit about the buildings where these units are set aside for supportive housing? The person typing the question said, I have had an experience where a client was referred to a building through SRN, but then the building rejected his application because his income was too low. The rent was going to be more than 30% of his income. What obligation does the building have to work with people referred through SRN?
So the rent should not have been higher than 30% area median income, because all of our
well, I think they said 30% of the renters'
income.
Of
yeah.
the person's income.
Right, and it will be more. It may be more than the person's 30% of the person's income. So the obligation to fill units with Statewide Referral Network referrals is that they are supposed to do exactly that. They have a tenant selection plan that was approved by their funding source, IDA, who which lays out the criteria for any renter in that particular property, right? So they treat everyone the same. There is an appeal process that is allowed for each. You should get a denial letter in the mail to the address that was given on the application that gives you 14 days to ask for a review of the decision with someone who did not make the decision. And then you could assist the person in presenting information about their credit history or their criminal background that would allow you to say, you know, hey, we're going to continue to work with this person. They have, you know, served their time. They've been good since then. They have not gotten into any issues. They're trying to change their life. We'd like the opportunity to do this. We are through this new online system for the first time being able to really track those types of denials, and I believe that there will be some changes as we move forward in what is approved within IDA tenant selection plans. I'm very hopeful that we can continue to make positive changes, because obviously if you're working with people that are at 30% of area median income, they often have not good credit and or criminal backgrounds that are oftentimes related to crimes of poverty or homelessness that aren't, arson or murder, so we are continuing to work on this. As the other thing that you can do besides an appeal is that if you're working with a person with a disability, we can do a reasonable accommodation request to the property if they are denied based upon their disability. And I can talk further to individual people about those cases as they happen. But for the first time, we're really tracking who gets in and who gets denied and why they get denied within this system, so that we can have the ammunition and the data to be able to show IDA, who is actually being able to move into these units. For the first time, we have a person at IDA who is the program manager of Section 811 and Statewide Referral Network, who is actively going and monitoring these housing locations that have received this funding to look at their SRN unit files and ensure that people that live in them were actually referred correctly and that are eligible. So I think that we've made a lot of improvements to the system in order to try to make sure that these units are going towards the folks that really need them and that they were designed for. And we look forward to you helping us continue that by letting us know anytime you refer someone what experience you have, and letting us assist in any kind of reasonable accommodation requests or requests for review and any kind of questions that you have around that.
Thanks. So here's a question that just came in. In regards to the ongoing case management portion, is there a minimum, maximum amount of time required in order for the client to qualify?
There is not at this point. I mean, we, again, you need to think about what supportive housing means and what it means to you. We are obviously not giving you any service dollars to do this in addition to what you already received. So what is good for the individual or household and supports them within that property and assists them in being good neighbors and maintaining their housing responsibilities, as well as working on whatever they want to work on to make their lives more fulfilling, is good. So we don't have any hours requirement or visit number requirement that is written anywhere.
Okay, and also someone just wants to confirm, did I understand right that a person does not have to have income to be on the list?
The person does not have to have income to be on the list. What happens when I make a match is that let's say, the community area that we've been talking about is Springfield, and I have a 2-bedroom unit that becomes available. I run the matches to people that are eligible for 2-bedroom and are interested in living in Springfield, and I have 5 people. I look at each one of those people to see if they have income, because if I refer them to the site, they're going to be denied if they don't have any income. So I have not been sending them on as a referral, but it doesn't knock them off the list, because you can go in at any time that someone obtains income and place that into the unit. I mean, remember, these are units that do have a rent. It's not zero rent. It's a 30% AMI rent, and you have to get electricity and other living expenses in your own name. So we try to not set up the household for disappointment by referring them with zero income, but they can absolutely be on the list as you're working with them to obtain income. And then once they have income, you can change that within the system, and then they would be referred when their name comes up on the top of a list.
Thanks.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does to me. Here we have got a handful more questions. If you work for an MCO, can you qualify as the caseworker?
You can. I know we've had we have managed care organizations that are working with Williams, Liggis, Culver, Money Follows a Person participants. You can ensure that the person is receiving those long-term services and supports that they need in the community, so you can be eligible to enter folks onto the waiting list.
Great. What are the minimum and maximum bedrooms in the units?
We have studios all the way up to 4 bedrooms. I've not seen anything larger than a 4-bedroom.
And again, that varies by building, obviously. So
right, it varies by building and property, and so there are many more studios in 1 bedrooms than there are larger sizes in the Chicagoland area, but then there are more kind of available 2- and 3-bedroom and even 4-bedroom units downstate. But you know, it depends on what the property was designed to meet, whether it was looking for families or individuals to serve.
Great. Okay, thanks for answering that. Can undocumented people apply as well?
You know what? Low-income housing tax credit doesn't require residency, but it does require a visa or some type of work visa, whether it's a work visa or any of that. I'm not an expert on this, but I have checked. We definitely can. They definitely can serve people that have an active visa, but people that are undocumented would not be eligible.
Okay. Is there a maximum number of apartments a person will be allowed to view before being removed or moved to the end of the list?
Not at this point on the statewide referral network. We might eventually, depending upon our experience, implement something, and we probably will implement something on the Section 811 side of it, just because there are more limited resources there. But at this point, we don't have that within our requirements for the statewide referral network.
Okay. There's a couple other questions about responsibilities for the agencies completing referrals. There was one general question. I think you explained your answer to that. And again, we are recording this, and we'll be sending out the recording as soon as possible after the call, along with the slides. But here's a question related to that that's a bit more specific. What sort of services have to be offered if the client moves out of your agency's service area? Or I guess what would happen if the person moves? And
right. So if you are working with a client who chooses community areas to be on the waiting list for, that you are an
oh no, we appear to have lost Lori's on audio, so which is unfortunate. So we'll wait a few seconds to see if she calls back in. Otherwise, we will wrap up the webinar.
Really am reluctant to have a bunch of folks on the waiting list that have chosen every county in the state as an option, because I really don't believe that many consumers are truly interested in living in every county in the state of Illinois, or that we can ensure that they would get the services that are offered and needed and that they desire in every county in the state of Illinois. So I think that if you are comfortable, you know, let's say you only serve, pardon me, I'm going to cough. Sorry, Uptown, or you only serve Sangamon County, but the person wants to live in Menard County, you know, that if you begin to look at like what type of service that they need. So like, let's say they need a community mental health provider, you know, who covers that community area, and would you be able to kind of transition them from your organization to their organization?
Got it. I'm glad you're back. We lost you for a second. It went all staticky. So glad you're back, Lori.
Sorry, I coughed.
Oh, it was before the cough. It was, but momentary technical difficulty that got resolved. So,
sorry. Did you hear what I said?
We did. We
Okay.
did. Yeah. So I think we came through. Someone wants to know, is there any type of certificate for this presentation? I can answer that. The answer is unfortunately no. And then again, and I think you've kind of answered this before, but maybe again, since a lot of people are asking the question, if you're working for an MCO and the member leaves your MCO, are you still responsible for handling their care?
So we have to work through some of these managed care issues, and so obviously I work for the state, and we partner with HFS and DHS and Aging on all of this. In fact, they all help pay for this website and the online waiting list, and our partners within ensuring people get these resources. So I think that we would have to work through that and hopefully figure out a way to transition to the new MCO who is able to assist that person, or that we make sure that, again, the MCO is not really providing the service per se, right? You're not going to go out there and do case management, but you've got them connected with the service providers that are out there, and that, you know, hopefully won't end if they change to a different managed care organization. But we can definitely work through that, and I'll put my information back up here again if you you know, have specific instances, or if you want to talk this through more, we can set up a time to do that.
Thanks. And we are going to be wrapping up the webinar in just a minute or two. Lori's got her contact information up on the screen, and I know she would welcome your emails and or phone calls with any questions that you didn't get an answer to on the webinar today. There was another question about the legal residency issue that you may or may not be able to answer, Lori, but does a ITIN suffice to prove residency?
You know what? I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that is. So why don't you send me a email directly and tell me about the situation, and I'll find out and let you know for sure that the person, I would go ahead and put them on the waiting list, and then you know, we can hash out the other details, and we can always remove them from the waiting list if we find out that that isn't possible. Again, let me remind everybody that I'm going to be sending a whole email's worth of information and attachments to Bob to send out to all the participants today, that will include the forms that you need to fill out in order to get a username and password if you don't have one, and that answers several of these questions and just gives you reminders about how to get on it. Also have the handbook for the actual website, so that it'll take you step by step, screen by screen, on how to do safe search or special search, safe search, and waiting list functions, and other bits of information, including about how to get onto my Heads Up on Housing email list if you don't get those. So I appreciate greatly everyone's response and willingness to get on this webinar and think about how they can assist people that they're working with access some supportive housing resources that are designed and that we're really working on actively making sure that go to the folks that they're designed to go to.